This video is not meant to slam or degrade anyone in any way who may be in support of the movement. That's not what this video is for. Some of the most loving, genuine, supportive people I know, they do support the movement, and that's okay. This video is not meant to slam that in any way at all. The purpose behind this video is to really try to explore this movement from a different perspective and to really answer the question, how can a Christian show his love and support for the Black community without supporting the movement or holding a sign? I promise this will be the last time I bring it up because tomorrow I start school and I really need to focus on my studies. I'm very thankful to have had the opportunity to speak to Terrence. He is a writer and a music teacher and also a friend of mine, and we both went to the same college, and I'm thankful that he was able to have the phone call with me and to share his thoughts on this matter, and it was very eye-opening, and I learned a lot just from listening to him. And stick around to the end because Terrence is going to talk about a recent book that he wrote, and it is available on Amazon for purchase as well. So hope you like the video. Before we kind of start, I'm just really curious. What are your thoughts concerning the Black Lives Matter movement? When you hear about it on the news or you see people, wearing the slogan or holding the sign, what do you think about it?
I think it's totally unnecessary. And here's why I say that. Not as the reason I think it's totally unnecessary is because I feel like it's being used to garner votes, used for more of a political agenda than actually wanting to implement change.
Sure. What makes you say it's more of a political agenda than wanting to implement change?
Well, the reason why is because I see it being utilized and weaponized in a lot of political campaigns. It is used to sway people to vote a certain way or to think a certain way or to be against someone or this or that or the other, rather than tackle the actual issue that they're trying to tackle. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So I think it's unnecessary because it's being used politically, but I also think it's unnecessary because of the time that we live in. Do you remember the Black Panther Party in the history?
I think I've heard of it.
Okay, so the Black Panthers, and this is back during the Martin Luther King civil rights era.
This is the era.
So
yes.
It began in Oakland, California.
Okay.
John Huey was the leader of that. Him, I'm going to butcher his name. Elridge, I want to say Cleveland Elridge or something like that, some along those lines, and another person. So back in that day, the Black Panther Party was a lot similar to the Black Lives Matter movement, only instead of protesting, they actually got violent with police officers.
Okay.
So the Oakland area in California was being openly policed to the point where people were being harassed, which, if you knew that time era, it was very, normal and okay for police officers to harass a Black person.
Right. Yes. It was definitely more accepted then.
Yeah. So they had enough, and they formed their little party to oppose that.
Right.
And Martin Luther King was of the persuasion that, the only way to combat that is by nonviolence.
Right.
They said that the only way to combat it is with violence.
Right.
So they literally went to war with the police. Now, in the meantime, they did a lot of positive things in the Black community. They provided lunch or breakfast for children who were in poverty-stricken areas, and some of them were very instrumental in putting Black people in college.
Okay, that's good.
So there were a lot of positive things that came out of it, but at the same time, there was, went about it with violence. And my fear with the Black Lives Matter movement is that it's becoming a second Black Panther Party.
I see.
Because consequently, with the Black Panther Party, no one won. Nobody won.
Right.
Well, the only thing that they did do was perpetuate more violence between them and the police officers. So.
Right. Let's dismiss the idea behind the movement. And some people have addressed the idea. Well, and I've read so many comments, not just to me, but I like to scroll. I like to be the behind-the-scenes person, or look at a picture, see its source, read a bunch of comments from strangers I don't even know. And I like to see some people make a good point. And some people say, I don't even care about the movement, but I do want to support Black Lives Matter. I want to bring awareness to this idea of Black people being unjustly killed. And I think that's great. I mean, you look at cases like Breonna Taylor or George Floyd, we need answers. And what's happened is the fact that, justice hasn't been served, it should raise eyebrows and bring up a red flag. But here's kind of where I draw the line. It's that everybody, maybe I shouldn't say everybody, but it seems to me that it is being declared as a racial move. Every time a Black person is killed by a police officer, it's automatically deemed as a racist move. And to me, that's very far from accurate, because we don't know the motives behind the killing. But what do you think? Do you think these are racially driven killings, or what? What do you think?
I think a lot of that is based on people's interpretation of it. Because what I like to do when I see these things pop up on Facebook and social media is, you see the 5-second or 12-second clip of the actual shooting. But my question is, okay, what happened before that 12 seconds?
Right.
So
you gotta get the context.
Exactly. So I do a little digging, and me and my friends, we do a little bit of digging, and we find the full, encounter of what went down in that moment through police cam, through CCTV footage and stuff like that. So we look at that and we go, okay, so before that 12 seconds, this happened. Now we got the full picture.
Right.
So
that's what I try to do as well. And I mean, sometimes it gets me heated, when the answers aren't being revealed. Wait a minute, what, And so it's almost like I sympathize. I understand where the anger is coming from. And I believe everyone has a right to be angry. They have a right to protest and to hold up a sign. It's just that this movement has escalated out of control, and it's producing more hate than answers and then what we're looking for. But that's interesting how you point that out, and that should be a lesson for all of us. When we see something happen, don't just make a quick judgment or assume anything, but understand what happened, understand the big picture. I got an email from a man. He's a Black man who wrote an article about how the Black Lives Matter movement is very damaging to the African American community. And I asked him, what can I do? How can I show my love and support for the Black community without supporting the movement or holding the slogan? And his response was to tell him the truth. He said, although a lot of people don't want to hear the truth. But what would you say to that? How some people are under the impression, especially seeing even the title of my last video, I don't support the movement. Some people are under the impression that, I don't really care, but that can be far from the truth. How can I show my love and support for the Black community without wearing the slogan or holding a sign?
I don't think you have to support a movement to support Black people. That's one thing my pastor at my church, he's very big on that. I support Black people, but not the movement. Now, I agree with what he said, telling people the truth. I also think that you can show that you care by understanding where the culture is coming from, because, when you talk about Black people, you talk about Hispanic people, you talk about Middle Eastern people, it's not just skin color you're talking about. You're talking about a culture.
Right.
And that culture, it has its traditions, it has its different variations of moral values, but it also has its history. And that's the thing that Black people definitely have in this country is a history. And the history is very bleak. So let me go ahead and say this. A lot of that hate, a lot of that animosity, it stems from what our parents have told us, our grandparents have told us, our great-grandparents have told us. I mean, we have heard so many stories about the Ku Klux Klan. We have heard so many stories about the Civil Rights Movement being told by white people, this is where you sit, this is where you drink, and if you even cross this line, there's going to be problems. So, you know, it's not just slavery. It started with slavery, and it just kind of trickled down throughout the decades, through the generations. And so you have this animosity, you have this hatred, and it's being passed down from generation to generation. So you have, you know, Black parents telling their kids, you know, all these horror stories, but you also have Black parents training their kids. Because I have seen several videos across social media, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, of people showing clips from television shows where a Black parent sits down with a kid and says, okay, when you meet a police officer, what do? You put your hands up, you don't talk back, you do this, you do that, you do everything to make sure that you come home.
Right.
So you have this sort of training that Black people feel that they have to go through just to make sure that their kid comes home. So I guess you'd call that this an indoctrination.
Okay.
That signifies that, you know, this is what has happened to us, so this is how we're treated in society.
Right.
Now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so you have that, and then a lot of the time, a lot of this animosity just comes from personal experience because although I don't call it necessarily oppression, there is this mentality that Black people can only do so much at a certain level.
Right.
And so let me share with you a conversation I had with a buddy of mine. He's in Fort Benning right now. He graduated from West Point. And he told me that when they had to take a test to enter into West Point.
Okay.
And there's a grading scale at West Point. Now, this is going to shock you, and it shocked me when I first heard it.
Okay.
But when it comes to Asians, the score to, like, they have to meet this mark in order to get in. For Asians, it is in the 700s.
Okay.
For white Caucasian Americans, it is somewhere in the 16. And for Black people, I think it was 500.
That's quite a difference.
Yeah. So it's like 700 for Asians, 600 for white people, and then Black people are kind of like at the bottom of the totem pole. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's kind of like society does not expect us to excel to a certain degree. And if you are a Black person and you manage to hit that 600 mark or even that 700 mark, you're considered an anomaly. So it's very, you know, common for people to have a very low scale of degree for Black people. I mean, I didn't put up with this at West Coast. I mean.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, just college students, you know, saying things that they don't realize they shouldn't be saying.
Anyway, let's go back to our topic on the Black Lives Matter. Just recently, I'm sure you've heard the shooting of Jacob Blake.
Yes.
And that deserves a lot of answers, you know. I mean, I was so impressed with his mother's response to that shooting. I think we can all learn from that. I don't care what side you are on. That was very powerful. Shortly after that, LeBron James, everyone knows him, made a declaration that in America, all Black people are scared. And he's gotten a lot of Black backlash for that. But what do you say to that?
All Black people are scared? I wouldn't say all of us are scared. I'd say the majority of us are scared. I'm still researching the whole Jake Blake scenario because I don't quite fully. I know that it is said that some racial, well, actually not even racial, just some things were said that were kind of inappropriate.
Sure.
So I'm still going to investigate that. But I did see the mom's response, and I do admire her for that. So, but when it comes to LeBron James, I feel like he, as with a lot of celebrities, are kind of backed into a corner to where they have to say something that goes a certain way so that they can, keep their jobs.
Sure.
I mean, my goodness, Hollywood is just under, ever since the Harvey Weinstein scandal and the Jeff Epstein debacle, Hollywood.
Well, and with cancel culture happening right now, any celebrity knows if they show support for the other side, they're going to be canceled. I mean,
exactly.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. So when it comes to celebrities, I really don't, pay too much attention to them because I know that they have to say this to keep their job or whatever.
Right. And that doesn't make sense. You kind of answered this question already when you talked about getting the context and the full story behind an incident. But this is one thing that's being thrown out there. Every time a policeman kills a black person, should that be looked at as a racist move?
No.
And why not?
Because so you have to understand where I grew up. And I want everybody to kind of understand where I grew up. Because, see, I grew up in Columbus, Georgia. Recently, Columbus, Georgia has been deemed the most dangerous city in America. So it is not out of the norm for me to hear a gunshot go off down the street.
Sure. Or
to read in the local newspaper that, Lamar Johnson just robbed the convenience store at gunpoint, or Trayvon Jackson just, shot this person over here and, stole a television set. So it's not out of the norm for me to hear that. So when I hear that and I hear about police shooting other black people, it's like, okay, was there a weapon in his hand? Was he defensive? Was he resistant? It's like, those questions kind of come into your mind. So for someone who doesn't necessarily come from that background, they may not quite understand why I don't think every police shooting a black person is racially motivated, because sometimes it's just what they have to do in the line of duty.
I've seen even a post from a friend of mine who's black stating that this person is afraid to even go outside. I had another person say he was chased down. If I remember correctly, he said it was directly racist move. Do you think the media has a part in making people afraid, genuinely afraid of police officers?
Yes. But let me also say that I'm not going to sit here and say that every police officer in America is a patron saint with a halo on their head. I know plenty of police or not know personally, but I know that, just like in the military, you have those guys who get into the military because they have a chip on their shoulder. Mm-hmm. They got something they want to prove to somebody, or, they do something. I know that there are some police officers who may have joined the force because they have an angst or an axe to grind with a certain people group. So I'm not naive to that. I'm not ignorant to that. I know that there's, so I know that certain situations can come up where a police officer may make an assumption or jump to a conclusion.
Right.
But he's human. What can you do? Just, comply, don't resist, just be compliant, and all that will work itself out.
Right. Okay. Well, let's start finishing up here. We're almost at close to 30 minutes. Let's tackle what the topic of this video is. Mm-hmm. And that is, I don't care what color you are. When you are a Christian, you are children of God. I believe that. And, I've read a comment on Facebook. I don't know who it's from. Just a stranger's comment. It's declaring something like, I'm so ashamed of people who call themselves a Christian and blatantly say all lives matter, or show pictures of riots and looting when they're completely purposely dismissing the real issue at hand. And I understand where they're coming from there. And then that makes me think, well, if I declare all lives matter, it's like, was that the wrong thing to do? But here's the big question. How should we, as Christians, respond to this movement in this day and age?
I'm going to go back to the all lives matter for just a second and say, I understand what they're trying to say. They're trying to say that all lives matter, but the way that they're saying it is almost they're trying to be combative. Mm-hmm. And personally, I think that they need to be more inclusive. Like, yes, Black Lives Matter. and your life matters just as much as mine. So let's, sit together, let's talk, let's find out, where the division is and try to, work through that so that we can be the United States of America.
Sure.
So I think there can be a little bit more unity between All Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter, because all lives do matter. Everybody does matter. So let's, come together and be unified.
Right. So it's kind of the way it's presented as a type attitude.
Exactly. It's let your speech be seasoned with salt, that kind of thing, or be seasoned with grace, that kind of thing. So, just be more inclusive, be more kind. That's the big thing. And it's not us versus them. That's the thing we've got to get out of our heads. It's not on both sides of the coin. Black Lives Matter and all lives. It's not us versus them.
Right.
Okay? Yes, we have our issues. Yes, we have our problems. But the minute we start pitting ourselves against each other, that's when we're headed for disaster.
Yeah. I agree.
I told this to a friend of mine. One time. And, I was just saying this out of speculation. But if I were a terrorist in, some foreign country somewhere, and I wanted to plan an attack against America, the best time to do it would be when they're all arguing with each other and they're not paying attention to what's going on around them. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
that's a very interesting point. Good way to put it. Well, Terrence, thank you for having this conversation with me.
No problem.
I really appreciate it from your perspective. Before we finish, can you please give us a summary of your book? It's called A Change of Heart. Is this the only book you have published?
As of right now, yes, I do plan on publishing more, but
okay. Well, tell us about this book, A Change of Heart.
A Change of Heart is a Christmas play that we did back in 2015 at Grace Baptist Church, and it is about a young man. He is a Yale student. He's about to graduate, and he comes home one day during the holidays. Oh, great! Let me put the setting out there. It's set in 1920 during the Great Depression. So he has a nationwide epidemic going on. The stock market's crashed. Businesses are going out of business. So we have this young man. He comes back home. His father was once a steel industry tycoon.
Okay.
And he lost that empire that he built. And now he's back in this small town. He's running this little toy store for the kids. And so he's just, living a nice, quiet life away from the steel industry. And his son comes back home after, years of watching his dad build this company. He's wondering, why in the world would you not want to go back to the steel company, and why would you just give it all up to run a toy store? So he sees how the gospel has changed his dad's heart, changed his dad's life, and, he, has to make that decision. Do I want to put my trust in Christ, or do I want to keep my trust in the future that I'm trying to build?
Nice. Well, I can't wait to order my copy
of
this book and read it myself. That's pretty cool. Well, thanks again, Terrence, for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, my friend. Take care of yourself.
You too.
All right.